a neighbor passed away. They asked me to look at his tools. He had a Powercraft lathe.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I never knew they made lathes.
Yeah. Well, we had a gentleman come to the swap meet to sell his father's lathe, and it was an old Craftsman tube lathe.
Yeah.
That was my first lathe.
Yeah, that thing must have weighed all of about 40 pounds.
You know,
Still
if
by
that was my only experience with a lathe, I would have stopped turning.
Yeah.
The banjo on that was horrible to move.
Yeah,
It just, and the speeds, they were non-existent. It
right.
was a belt, but and the quill, you had a thumb wheel to turn.
Mm.
You know, but I still use the chisels I got with that first kit, the Craftsman chisels.
Yeah. But yeah, and you know, every once in a while I'll just go on Craigslist, just on a whim, and I'll type in wood lathe, and there's at least a dozen Craftsman tube lathes up there. Lots of Rockwell Deltas, you know, which my neighbor's got sitting in my garage. He's got an old Delta Rockwell that you know, where he's trying to find some parts for and everything, and I think some of them we're going to have to go to a machinist and have made, because it's got a very odd size spindle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's not 3/4 inch, it's not 1 inch, it's not 1 1/4 inch. It's a very odd size.
Is it that, what, M33?
No,
33 millimeter?
no, I don't think it's an M33. So I don't know. He's got the tool rest, which, you know, is just a flat piece of metal, or not the tool rest, the banjo. It's a flat piece of metal with a slot cut in it and a bolt through it, you know, to mount it to. So, you know, you get something good and hard, that's going to crack right off because it's just made out of cast iron. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Then it's got a motor hanging underneath, and you just lift it up to change the belt position, and there's nothing really holding it down.
Didn't Home Depot take over some of those tools for a while?
Who?
Home Depot? I thought they did, but
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, yes.
And I know, you know, I don't know if it's still going on, but right now, or I shouldn't say right now, we've had for the last couple of years, it's been very hard to get parts for Delta anything. That's because there's a group of businessmen here in America that bought Delta machinery back, and they wanted to bring it back to America and manufacture them here in America. And I don't know who their lawyer was, but in the process, you know, they missed out on buying the parts corporation, the corporation that made all the parts and everything.
Ooh.
So that was still in China, and the Chinese was refusing to deal with them. And there's a lot of legal battles going back and forth. So I don't know what the status of that is. I've got a Delta dust filter in my lathe, and it's got the remote control, the little cheap remote control, and I couldn't get it to work half the time. I had to pound it on the bench to get it to turn on and stuff. And so, you know, I'm an old electronics guy. So I just, on a whim one day, I took it apart, you know, just to see if there's anything going on there, like a cold solder connection or something like that. And what I found out is the contact for the batteries were just spring steel that was coiled. And where the positive side connected to the circuit board, it had come loose. So I threw a dot of solder on there, and boom, I've got a perfectly good remote. But I could not find one anywhere. Couldn't find one used, couldn't get one from Delta. And a lot of their stuff, a lot of their tools weren't even referenced in the part list.
Hmm.
So I hope they've got that straightened out, or get it straightened out soon, because there's a lot of Delta products out there.
One year, my son got me for Father's Day or my birthday, I don't remember, a Craft Supplies remote, you know, I could plug my dust collector into.
Uh-huh.
And it worked fine. And then all of a sudden one day it wouldn't work. And I went out there and I needed it. So I went out there and I was going to pull the plug out and put the plug directly into this, you know, receptacle. And the plug was welded into the unit. Now, they covered it under warranty. They replaced it, but I have never seen, or I can't even understand how that plug got welded into the receptacle. You know, that the transmitting unit receptacle, or
Interesting.
receiving unit. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to get something, you know, for my dust collector because it's on the other side of the shop and everything, and I just wasn't going to spend $80 at Woodcraft for a remote control, and you know they weren't much cheaper at Penn State and stuff like that. So I was at Harbor Freight one day, and they had a Stanley remote control with 3 plugs on it, and for $19, and it works. It
3
works on the
plugs?
yeah. So
Wow.
they are here. Let me pull one out here. So this is what they're like. There's 3 of them. And so this one's hooked up to my vacuum pump, which is sitting right next to me, but I just get kind of lazy and don't want to reach over. And
Well, you got 3 of them, might as well use them, right?
yeah, and then I have hanging behind me the remote control. And it's a Stanley, and it was $19. You know, a little over 20 with tax. And the biggest problem I had with the dust collector was it was 2 horsepower. So they always said I had to have these bigger ones and stuff like that. It runs 2 horsepower with no problem. The starting voltage doesn't bother at all.
I'll bet you've got a magnetic switch in there that uses less horsepower, uses less amperage to kick on the switch, and then takes over after that.
That may very well be. You know, I'll tell you what. I've you know, people badmouth Harbor Freight. I've always been impressed with this dust collector. It sucks.
With Harbor Freight, I find the less moving parts, the better.
Yeah.
But I recently bought some, they're almost like parallel clamps. They're long. And they're like a channel. And what I ended up doing, I was watching a Paul Sellers a video on YouTube. He takes a piece of wood sized to fit inside that channel. There's no twist. I can put that clamp in my bench vise and then just use the parallels for whatever I'm working for on the workbench.
Oh.
And they don't twist. When you've got that piece of wood in there, they don't twist.
Wow.
So it gives it a lot more strength.
Yeah, I know. I've had a couple people that I follow online that have said, you know, if you're going to use Harbor Freight clamps, don't go over 12 inches.
I've got one that I think is 60 inches.
Really?
And I have no problem. And I like that because it's got taller jaws on that particular one.
Yeah. Cool.
So Jeff, I have a question.
Sure.
So you guys, I've been watching these recommendations that have been on Tool Times for sharpening jigs. So last week or whenever it was, somebody was talking about the Robo Hippie jig,
tool
you know.
rest, yeah.
And then there's somebody a couple of months ago, I think, talked about the Raptor one that you can get from Craft Supplies. And then I was looking at Ron Brown's Best site, and he's got one as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, you know. So I'm a new turner, right? I'm still trying to learn how to sharpen my tools well. I think I'm doing okay, but I'm wondering if that would help, number one, for repeatability and accuracy, and also if there's an advantage of one of these tools, types of jigs, you know, over the other one.
Yeah. Well, the one from Robo Hippie is a sharpening platform. So you wouldn't be able to do your gouges unless you freehand your gouges, which I suspect you don't.
No.
I don't. So that's specifically for that. Now the Raptor tool, I've got a Raptor tool. It's a 60-degree for setting up for my doing my gouges. I've had arguments with Craft Supplies because it doesn't, and I've got CBN wheels that are 8 inches. I don't get 60 degrees out of it. I get more like a 55 degree.
Oh.
So what I've ended up doing is I've got an El Cheapo General protractor, and I measure the bevel to, and then I I measure the bevel, then I use my Varigrind to regrind it to get it to 60. And then I try to leave my stand there. I have the arm marked on it. I use the Wolverine, by the way.
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
it
so
that
do
way.
I.
But even with the marking, you know, that can get wiped off, or it's not always a precision set. Now, Glenn Lucas years ago said, when you get your Wolverine set exactly where you want it for your Varigrind, take a piece of 1/4-inch dowel and cut it to the exact width so it's a tight fit between your wheel and the corner of that Varigrind, or the corner of that Wolverine where the Varigrind sets at. And he says you'll have the same setup every single time. And I've not done that yet, but that's something I'm thinking about.
Can I jump in a second?
Sure.
I bought the Ron Brown's Best a couple of years ago. I bought 2 things. I bought the one that looks like a protractor, and you basically use it like a protractor against the heel of your V cup, V block, and the wheel, and it sets the same angle each and every time. And then he had a thing, I think it was $10, and I got 4 different angles on it, and I set my platform with, so I can set it for sharpening roughing gouge. I set it for sharpening skews. I like it for doing my scrapers, but since I'm kind of switching over to negative rake, that's kind of going by the wayside now. But he also has, if you like the 40/40 grind, he's got a setup that you use with that one way that you can do the 40/40 grind with it. And I think it's worth it. I mean, I like the 40/40 grind for bottoms of bowls.
Yeah, he's offering a package right now with that setup for the 40/40 grind and a DVD and something else in there.
Okay.
But yeah, Ron comes up with some great stuff.
He does.
Yeah, and he puts a lot of thought into it. You know, he just came up with the combination. What was it? He had the donut chuck that he had for years, and then he's come up with a combination donut chuck and something else. I can't remember.
The Longworth chuck, I believe.
Longworth chuck, yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
One other thing that and this is strictly my opinion, that protractor thing that he sells, I like it better than the Raptor, because while the Raptor is precise for that angle, you only get one.
Yeah.
With this other thing, I can get any angle that I want. You know, I mean, it's not marked in angles. You have to figure out where it is you want, and then then you write that down, and usually I inscribe it on the tool so that I know, okay, this is a 3.5, 5, and 5 would be the setting on the one way, and 3.5 would be the setting on his tool.
Mm-hmm.
I really like his tool, though.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it, because I've been curious about that. You're the first person I've ever talked to that's had it.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
No, I think it's ideal.
Okay. I may look into that.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I got another question for you guys. I had some trees taken down in my backyard last week.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big cedar, and I thought actually that it was going to be a good cedar, you know, something I can make bowls out of, but it was all rotten on the inside. But anyway, the guy that was taking down the tree, I was telling him why I was looking at the cedar, right? Because I'm a wood turner and all that. And he said, so he gets a lot of wood, right? And he says, I have a walnut burl at home, and he kind of showed me, you know, the size, and he put his arms out like this and said it's really, really big. It must have been like 18 inches or so, 20 inches in diameter. And he said, could you make a bowl for me out of this? right? And I go, no, I have a small lathe, right? It's 12-inch max, and plus I'm not confident that I could do a burl anyway because I haven't done any bowls, really any bowls. But anyway, so how would we get a rec? I guess I could put it up on Facebook. He was gonna send me a picture of it. And he hasn't yet.
Okay.
I told him to send me a picture, put a ruler on it so people know how big it is and all that, and then I can maybe post it or talk to somebody. I was thinking Matt Harbor. He seems like he's a pretty good wood turner, right? But I don't know if there's people that would do that.
Well, there's numerous guys in the club that could handle that with no problem, both equipment and skill. What I do, I get a lot of people that come to me, and because being the president, and they see my name and they ask about things like that. Like for instance, I don't know if you remember earlier in the year, we had a thing on Facebook, and the guy was looking for somebody to turn these finials for the top of fence post. That he wanted them to be the same as what they originally were because it was an antique. And I said, go to our Facebook page. I gave him the information. I said, post pictures up there and post what you're looking for. And let's see if somebody goes for it. Lowell and Nat grabbed it. It was a paying job. And there was another one like that where I sent a person over to our Facebook page. So that's what I do. I said, make sure you have contact information that you're comfortable with putting out on Facebook. Give pictures if you can. A guy just came to me the other day with pictures of I think it's a walnut tree with the most burl I have ever seen. It's like this whole tree was covered in burl, including the little limbs. And he was wondering if anybody could do anything with it for him or what could be done with it. And I said the same thing. I said, put it out on our Facebook page. And, and when it comes to burls, you're going to get flooded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you will get flooded with people. But I haven't seen it yet. So if I don't see it in the next couple of days, I'm going to send him another email and ask him what the status is of that, or if he needs me to help him get it on Facebook, because he may not have Facebook. So, but that's what I do. When people come to me with stuff like that, I direct them to our Facebook page, and I tell them to put it out there with pictures. Because we've got a lot of talent in our club.
Yeah, I know that, but I just didn't know what would be the best way. I don't want to, just contact one guy that I know, right? So I guess putting another Facebook page would be best, right?
Yeah, yep. And we have no problems with that. The person doesn't have to be a member to post. We have a lot of people that post on our Facebook page that aren't members. One guy's from France. Matter of fact, he posted for a challenge one time, one of the president's challenges, and I wrote to him. And I goes, I don't see your name on the list. Are you a member of the club? And he wrote back. He says, no, I'm in France. He says, I just love your Facebook page. And I goes, well, I can't put you in the president's challenge. I says, we'd love to see you post your pictures because you do great work. And he goes, that's fine. I understand. Something Kruger, Norbert Kruger is his name. I think it's Norbert Kruger. Yeah. And we chat every once in a while. So, yeah, we got people all over the world on our Facebook page.
That symposium that class that Matt Harbor was involved in this past week was with Chris. I don't remember his last name, but he's in England.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did a collaborative effort on teaching some things about texturing.
Yeah.
And Mark Wallace was in it. Did you see that platter that he did?
Yes.
That kind of pink platter. Wow, that was something.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Technology has made the world a very small place.
Yes.
And, the fact that, I chat pretty regularly with people like Mike Walt, Nick Zametti, and guys like that, Stuart Farini, and we just chat like, we've known each other for years. It's great. It's absolutely great. A lot of good people in this field, and it reminds me of the days when I was in Magic, because we would have our versions of symposiums in conventions and stuff like that, and that's where all the big names came in too, to share their knowledge and everything. And you were one of them, names that I would know that you guys wouldn't necessarily know because they're bigger in Magic than they are to a specific audience. But guys like Eugene Berger, who was one of the world's greatest mentalists. You know, I sat down and talked with him. Terry Seabrook out of England, who him and his partner helped create some of the magic for Phantom of the Opera. You know, Terry is one of the coolest guys you ever want to meet, one of the biggest drunks you'll ever meet. But you know, you buy him a bottle of his favorite scotch, and you've got a friend for life. You know, you know, and Tom Mullica, not a big household name, but Tom Mullica had a bar down in Atlanta called the Tomfoolery. And he did this thing with cigarette magic where he would produce cigarettes from his mouth and put, you know, and he'd take a cigarette, disappear it into his mouth and everything. And by the end of his act, he had 5 packs of cigarettes shoved in his mouth, all lit. It was just amazing. And he became friends with Red Skelton before Red Skelton passed away. And Red was in his bar one night, and Tom was doing his stuff and everything. And when he was done, he came over and brought a refill for Red's drink, and he started talking to him about how much he admired him and how much he used Red's comedy in what he did, his physical comedy and so on. And Red says, "I'll tell you what," and he mentioned that he always wanted to do a tribute act to him where he would do the different characters and stuff. And Red said, "I'll tell you what," he says, "you eliminate all the foul language from your routines and your comedy, and you can do anything you want of mine."
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, Tom passed away a couple years ago from HIV-induced cancer. But he, for many years, did a Red Skelton tribute show that would just bring tears to my eyes. You know, and he did a lot of the routines and stuff like that. And the end of the show, talking to the audience while he was putting on Freddie the Freeloader makeup. And the transformation was just stunning. He had the voice and character inflections in the voice down that Red had, the kindness that Red had, and the first time I saw the show was 2 weeks after 9/11, and it was up north at a college, and Tom always closed with what Red Skelton closed with, and that was you know, I hope I hope that this last hour has been a good time for us to come together and in kindness and to share a laugh. And he started crying. And then he said, "This world is in such rough shape right now that we have to laugh and we have to make others laugh to save our world." And that's how he ended it. And that was the most touching thing I had ever heard. And I went up and introduced myself to him afterwards and told him that I was involved in the Ann Arbor Magic Club. And the Ann Arbor Magic Club had a national presence. Everybody knew us because we turned out a lot of, you know, Franz Harari, Hank Morehouse, guys like that. We turned them all out of our club. And, you know, and we were like brothers after that. We'd call each other. We'd talk. You know, he called me up one night. He says, "Hey, I'm just getting ready to go on here at the Magic Castle. I was thinking about you, so I just want to tell you hi." And I goes, "Well, why don't you invite me?" You know, and you know, and that's the way it was in the magic realm. And it's like that in the Turner's realm. It's like, you know, you meet somebody, and it's like they've known you forever.
Yeah.
And that's what. You know, I don't want to say brotherhood because we got a lot of women involved in it too, but you know, but it's like that. And
Camaraderie.
I beg your pardon?
Camaraderie.
Yeah, camaraderie. Yep, that's a good word for it. It's just wonderful. And you know, I just called Mike Walt one time out of the blue, and he happened to be in his shop, and he goes, "Well, I'm glad you called." And he said he talked to me for a half an hour. He was just getting ready to set up and film a video for his weekly YouTube thing. And he talked to me for a half an hour, you know? It's cool. It's really cool. So I'm looking forward to Carl Jacobson in December. Looking forward to having him. That's going to be fun. Captain Eddie, I talk to all the time, you know. Eddie will talk to anybody.
Captain Eddie had a deal with, I believe it was Terry, that they were going to, that we could take all of Captain Eddie's videos, put them on disc, and use them for our club, not for sale, but use them in our club library. And then Terry passed away, and
Oh,
I don't know what happened then.
wow. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I should ask him that. Remind him of that, because I'm sure he's forgotten about it by now.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
But that would be a big process. But you know, there's software, or not software. There's websites where you can download YouTube videos to your computer. I do it all the time.
And then just burn them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But I think it would have to be a group effort, because he's got about 375 videos out there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of them.
Yeah. And they're good. They're good. Now, the last couple of years have been kind of rough because of the problems he's had.
Yeah, with the brain surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, and he and I had our surgeries about the same time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. There's only a few months apart. I just had it a lot better than him. But his was pretty serious too. They had to go deep down into the brain.
Yeah.
So.
You didn't have to go that far for your brain.
No. You know, they just, I mean, it was very spacious in there. They just reached in and grabbed it.
Well, my wife says my head's filled with sawdust, and I say thank you every time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that sawdust has to go somewhere, right?
That's right.
It doesn't all go in the collector. But, you know, I had my problems come out of it too. So that's why I'm retired. You know, I couldn't do my job anymore. And I still have some problems memory-wise and with some stammering and stuff, but it's not as bad as it was. But for a while there, I couldn't be part of this conversation we're having right now, because I would just sit there and go, you know, I was a miserable person to try to have a conversation with.
What hospital did you have your surgery at?
Henry Ford downtown. I actually had Dr. Jack Rock, who's considered the best. He's the president of the National Neurological Society, and there is nobody better than Dr. Jack Rock.
Because I had surgery down there in 2014 by, oh gosh, darn, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name now. Jason Schwab, Dr. Schwab, 2014 for epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
And they essentially cured it, or close to cured it. So
Okay.
That's what I have a saw stop and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I did have a seizure recently, but I wasn't taking a medication, right? So
Yeah. You didn't have the split brain surgery, did you?
no, in my case, they put a fixture on my brain, on my head. In 1966, I was involved in a serious accident, and I had a head injury. And it took 40 years for it to catch up with me, like the football players. And I started to have seizures. And in this case, there was damage to the brain, so they went in and they destroyed the cells, supposedly, that were giving me the seizures. But I went a long time without a seizure until recently, but I'm going to be fine, so never stop using my tools.
Yeah. I have a sister who's severely epileptic, has been since 6 months old, and she was having 20 seizures a day. And what they ended up doing is they put a device in her brain, and it's connected to a device underneath the skin in her left shoulder. And if she feels a seizure coming on, she's got a bracelet with a magnet. She holds right over that, and it stops it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's wonderful the things they're doing now.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's just incredible.
Yeah. Now I'm getting an echo all of a sudden. Well, there was no echo there. So whatever it was, it stopped it.
Yeah.
So.
Thank God for modern medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reminds me of Star Trek, the things that they supposedly did on the show
Oh, yeah.
that are really coming to fruition now.
Yeah. You know that little device that Bones used to hold over a person to examine them, and it had a little spinny on it? That was a salt shaker.
Was it really?
There is a book out there about the props of Star Trek. In the very first season, the phaser guns that they had were made out of toilet paper rolls. It's just genius stuff.
I heard a story one time that this guy was sitting on his veranda watching a Star Trek episode, and his phone rang, and he went in the house to answer the phone, and the person had hung up. He went back out to watch more, and it happened again. Well, right after it happened the second time, somebody pulled out a communicator, and he said, "Wow, this is a good idea." And he invented the cell phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yep. That's where the Motorola flip phone came from, was Star Trek.
yep.
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 Yeah. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So,
Can you imagine the technology we carry on our hip with a cell phone? It's amazing. It's
Oh, geez.
my iPhone 7 has iPhone 7 has 10,000 times more computing power than the lunar module did.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the lunar module was basically a calculator, is what it boiled down to.
Well, think of the guys that ran World War II, like, oh, geez, who was the guy? McNamara and the whiz kids.
Mm-hmm.
They ran World War II without a computer.
Yeah.
Imagine how they did that.
Yeah.
How they did that on paper and with phones.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
It is.
Well, the early Gemini and Apollo flights, they had those ladies in the back room doing all the calculations and everything.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. So, yeah, the unfortunate thing is I won't be around in 100 years to see what's going to be then. Because they said for every one major scientific, human-changing accomplishment we made in the 20th century, it's going to be 100-fold in the 21st century. Mind-boggling. And already the stuff we're seeing.
The way I heard it was man's knowledge doubles every 7 years.
Yeah.
And looking back, I can see it. The things I have now that were not anything way back then.
Yeah.
They weren't even thought of. And on my cell phone, it's a phone. I can text with it. It's a calculator.
Mm-hmm.
It's my alarm clock. It's my camera. It put the film industry basically out of business.
Yeah.
This thing does it all.
Yep.
Except lose weight for me.
Yeah. Well, that's coming next.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, hey, listen, I'm gonna spotlight my image because I want to show you guys something. I've got a question. Let's see, spotlight. There we go. Hopefully, you guys will see this because it's on white paper. Do you guys remember the ceramic Christmas trees that had the little fake bulbs in them?
Yes.
And well, those are like antiques now. You can't even get those kits. But I found a place where you can get the little bulbs and the little star to go on top. So I want to make a wooden version of that for Christmas. And my dilemma is hollowing it out. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I had a couple different ideas. Can you guys see the tree?
No.
Yeah.
Let me turn. Is this any better?
No.
No. Okay. So anyways, it's the standard tree, the zigzag design.
Yeah. I can see it now.
And I had that idea. I also had this one, which is basically just triangle with lines burned on it. My question on that is, how do I go about hollowing that out, considering the one end comes to a point? I've been playing around different ideas. I don't know the traditional tree shape. I don't know if I have to make that in parts. And
I would make that in parts. I would hollow it out as best you can to a point, and no pun intended. And then split it in half and use your grinders, your hand grinders on it, your Dremels and whatnot, to hollow it out, and then drill. But then you can see where your split is usually, unless you do a very good paint job on the outside.
Yeah. Well, I was going to just use poplar because I'm going to paint it green anyways.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the trick if I split it. Now I've got a Halloween system, but you know, that was my concern. How do I mount it? And I guess if I do the traditional shape, then the only one I really have a problem with then is the tip.
You have a steady rest?
No, I don't. But I've turned out the 10 inches without a steady rest, and if I take very, very light cuts, it's not so bad.
Yeah, but if you
just takes longer.
If you bring it to a point on the outside or close to a point, you could, well, yeah, you could bring it almost to a point and then reverse chuck it and finish your point once you get your hollowing done.
Okay. Because my thought is I can't have it any thicker than probably 3/8 of an inch, because the tips of these bulbs that go into the unit itself are only about a 1/4 inch long. And then instead of having a regular light bulb in there, which I think was going to be too hot, I was going to do a dowel up the center wrapped in LED tape.
That's a great idea.
Yep, and with one on top for the star. So, but yeah, that was
a challenge coming on.
What's that?
I see a challenge coming on.
Well, I might do that. Who knows? Maybe if I get good at it, maybe next year I'll do it as a demo later in the year. So, yeah, but that's something I wanted to do, and I just kind of been wrestling with that. And I really wanted to go with the traditional shape rather than just a triangle with the burned lines. You know, I think that's fine for a little ornament, but doing something that's 8-9 inches tall, I just think, I don't know, it's too modern looking. I want something more traditional.
Right.
So okay. Well, that was my big question. I'll keep you guys appraised at how I do on that.
I think any way you do it, other than the modern, you're going to have a lot of carving to do on it.
Yeah.
Because I'm picturing the ceramic ones with the, let's say, branch coming out.
Yeah.
That's basically going to be a carved item on there.
Well, I wasn't even going to do that. It was just going to be basically stacked 3 triangles is what it boils down to.
Okay.
At different widths to create that tree effect. Because I'm not that much of a carver.
You could have them undercut and then make them in segments each, you know, and then just glue them together. Nobody'd ever know because they are undercut a little bit.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
3 cones, basically.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of an idea. Remember the first picture you showed where you had the sculptured?
Yes.
You should, okay. Put a vertical line down the middle and make a lot of those out of flat pieces of plywood, let's say. And then just glue them together so that they look like branches coming out. Or you can take a dowel in the middle and cut grooves in it and then glue the half sections into those grooves. And then you have holes inside where you can string the LED lights and hang them from the tips. See what I'm saying? And in other words, it's really just flat work that you put together to look like a tree. But since you have so many lights, people are not going to be looking at what is holding the lights together, but seeing the whole effect.
Oh, that's an idea. That's sort of like, you know, what you would do if you built up a segmented box or something like that. You do it in layers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in this case, it's angular. In other words, looking down, you can see the veins coming out, or the sections coming out in equal spaced angles going all the way around. And then you put holes in the solid part so that you can string the lights through them as well.
Okay.
And in fact, in the lights that way, people can't even look down into the center to see how you've done it.
Interesting. That's an interesting idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else got any issues they're working on?
try.
Well, I'm working on, I'm doing a little carving, but I'm having to work outside. Carving makes dust. Did you know that?
Oh, that's what I hear.
Yes, I've got lots of it in my shop.
Yeah, you don't get
So
dust with
anyway,
turning. So
I've made my first official regular size wooden spoon.
oh, nice.
And it's a little bit oversized, especially the handle, because I like them that way. So I'm going to try making some more of these, and then I've been making spatulas. I've got 4 or 5 spatulas made. I want to try a fork, but the learning curve on this spoon, at least for me, has been a little difficult. But I'm finally getting it down to that where it doesn't take so long. But man, I turn the handle, then I have to go outside to do the carving on the spoon because, man, my shop is absolutely covered in fine, tiny little
Yeah.
dust.
Now, when I was a kid, we didn't call those spoons. We called them paddles.
Yeah.
But this is about paddle size.
Yeah.
Bob Makowski really liked it because, he's a rather large child, and he said it fit in his hand real well, so he liked it. But it's a work in progress. I'm experimenting with them, so hopefully
Dave?
before cold weather, I get 2 or 3 more made anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave,
Yes, sir.
wouldn't your fork be the same thing as a spatula, just cut some notches in it?
Yeah, pretty close. But you want the fork to be just a little bit thicker on the end because of the
Gotcha.
because you do cut the grooves in it. I think the tines would be a little too flexible.
Okay.
And most of the forks I've looked at are just a little bit thicker on the end than a spatula. They're like, I think the thinnest one I've seen is like the thickness of the end of the spatula twice.
Do you use a bandsaw or do you use a scroll saw?
Bandsaw. I whip them out on the bandsaw quite easily, and then I've been putting them on the lathe and turning the handle. Then I take them outside and carve the spoon bowl itself out. And I'm telling you, the saber-tooth bits and stuff really work nice. I've got the blades that go on my Merlin too, and I got them from Bob, and they work real nice. My the other ones work also on my Fordham. They work real nice. So it's just a preference as to which one I want to have in my hand at the time. But
You don't have a special tool to make the bowl on that?
Nope. I just hand carved it with the Merlin discs, with the saber-tooth discs.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's the first one. So there's about a week's worth of work in this one spoon. But I've got it down now where I think I can do 2 spoons a day, I think.
Oh, nice.
If you were to sell it, it'd be 25 cents an hour you're making, huh?
Just about, yeah, pretty close to that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the first dozen or so, if I get that many made, are family owned anyway.
Yeah.
That tends to happen when I make stuff. It gets taken over by a grandchild or a daughter or whatever, but that's fine too.
That's how you live on.
So you sell them for spoons at $10 a piece, and you sell them for paddles at $25 a piece.
Yes, yeah. And actually, my wood shop teacher in junior high school had something about this size that I became quite acquainted with. Actually, in fact, about 10 years ago, I was working at the Waterford Senior Center wood shop, and I had my back to the door, and a man came in and asked a question, and without even looking, I said, "That's Mr. Norman Felt," and I turned around, and it was my junior high school wood shop teacher. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, David Meir." And I said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "I still have the marks on my butt to prove I was in your class." One thing I learned in his class: never throw a block of wood across the shop at one of your friends. That's
Probably a valuable lesson. Yeah.
That's the fastest way to meet the paddle.
Dave, what is that made out of? Is that maple?
It is maple, yes.
Okay. Boy, must have been a lot of work then.
It is, yeah. But like I said, with the saber-tooth bits, it worked. It went pretty fast. It was basically my learning how to control the Merlin to make it run smooth rather than jumping all over and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's working. I'm getting there.
Speaking of that, can you imagine us doing what we do back in the 1800s?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, foot-powered lathes.
Yeah. I'm
that
thinking.
turn maybe 8 revolutions a minute.
I keep thinking of my one of my grandfathers, because he was a carpenter. He was a lumberjack. He grew up a lumberjack and became a carpenter. And he moved down here from the UP and built several houses. And going to his shop and seeing all of the old tools and stuff he had, I still remember seeing all those things. And I had a lot of them for a long time, and then they were distributed between cousins and so forth. But yeah, I don't know that I could function the way they did.
Yeah, they're amazing. When I was a teenager, my best friend, his grandfather was a builder. And his grandfather was in his 80s then and still doing it. And so the grandfather wanted to build a small house for my buddy's parents for their 25th wedding anniversary. And they had a piece of property out in the middle of nowhere outside of Pinckney. And I got involved in that. He said, "You want to learn? Come on, we'll get you working." Yeah, boy, he did. He worked me from sunrise to sunset. But I watched him one day. He had a piece of a true 1-inch thick by 12-inch lumber that was about 10 feet long, and he needed it to be resawed. And he did it with a handsaw right down the center, and it was just amazing watching him. It took him about 45 minutes. And when he got done, we measured it, and each piece was a 1/2 inch exactly, right down. It was just amazing watching him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't be that good even now. So.
Yeah, and I remember asking, "How long did it take you to do that?" And he goes, "Well, I'm 82 now." That was his answer. One of the things that we did, it was a log cabin, and that's when I learned about, we took a dump truck up to their property up in Waters, Michigan, and hauled jack pines back for logs.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember sitting up there cross-legged with a log in place, pounding a spike in that was about 8 inches long through the log into another one. And we had to put 3 of those spikes into every single log. Man, that was a long, long day. So, but I learned a lot from it, and just watching him do what he did. And the guy was just amazing. And he did every single part of that house. He did it all: the electrical, the plumbing, finished carpentry, the whole works. And he had been doing that since he was 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of knowledge there.
Just learning how to use hand tools now.
Yeah.
Using the hand saws and the planes. I've had a brace and bit for a long time. I use that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm just learning how to do the old ways now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they now call that Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing watching those guys. Who's the guy that was on PBS, did everything with the old way?
Roy Underhill.
Roy Underhill, yeah.
Roy Underhill.
Boy, you get him at any of the symposiums or anything, you're not going to get in to see him unless you've gotten tickets months in advance.
I saw him at the Detroit Wood Show many years ago, and he just had a space in the middle of the floor, and he had some logs, and he carried his own bag of old tools with him.
Yeah.
And myself and another guy, he had help him cut a board. That guy sharpens all those tools himself,
Yeah.
and that's probably some of the sharpest tools
Yeah.
I've ever seen. But he also said that they don't make steel like they used to for these
Right. Right.
hand saws and things. But I read a year or so ago that he now has a school in North Carolina or South Carolina, wherever he lives, in this old little building. And if you go there and take a class from him, you are not allowed to wear any clothing with a logo of any kind on it. He wants you to dress in the period, in the style of the period.
Mm-hmm.
And that he has a great workshop, but he's a taskmaster. If you want to learn how to do it, you're going to learn how to do it from him his way.
And that's the way they were back then.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he's quite the guy. Very funny, very personable. So I enjoyed
his daughter's following in his footsteps.
Pardon me?
His daughter's following in his footsteps. She's been doing a lot, and she's been on his show off and on.
Yeah, I've heard that. And she's, I don't know how many daughters he's got, but he has one that's a singer. And she's a singer in an all-girl group. So, but yeah, he's quite a nice guy.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable. But
yeah, I saw him from a distance because I couldn't get anywhere as near where he was demoing
when I
that.
saw him, there was no special tickets or anything to get in to see him.
Yeah.
He was just in the middle of the floor and at the wood show.
Wow.
And that's the only time I've ever seen him anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if he quit doing wood shows or what, but yeah, interesting fella.
There's another fellow like that, Chris Swartz, I think. He used to be the editor of Popular Woodworking or something like that.
Yeah.
And he has his own shop or a place in a small town, and he does everything with hand tools. And he's really, really good.
Yeah.
He can make something faster with hand tools than I can using the machines that I have in my shop.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Roy Underhill does.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's quick. Yeah.
I mean,
he makes it look so easy.
Yeah. But his tools are razor sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. Used to be another guy in PBS, and I think he's passed away now, but he had a half-hour show where he did everything with a router table.
Oh,
absolutely everything. And it was amazing watching him.
Oh, I don't know.
And I think his son was on with him. There was somebody else on with him.
Yeah.
And I'm talking 90s now. I'm talking early 90s.
I can't think of what his name was.
Yeah.
I can picture him, but I can't come up with his name.
I mean, but I watched him and I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense to me, you know. But he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Did Roy Underhill ever use any glue? I don't.
What was that?
Horsehide glue.
Horsehide glue, yeah.
Use horsehide glue? Yeah. When did PVA get invented? In the 40s or something like that?
You know that I don't know that.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but you know that horsehide glue is an old glue, and it's very, very important. Most violins and most musical instruments made out of wood are made with horsehide glue. So a little bit of heating, a little bit of moisture, you take it apart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Roy Underhill still uses horsehide.
Oh, sure, no, and Chris Schwartz only uses horsehide glue.
Really?
No, but I was friendly and still are somewhat friendly with a violin maker, and routinely they take the violins apart. The fingerboard, that black thing, the black one that they press the strings on.
Mm-hmm.
But once every 8 years, they have to replace the fingerboard, and all violinists who give concerts in different halls, they know who the local violin maker is in case there's something a little bit wrong or has to be fixed in the violin, and they'll go right to the guy's shop and he'll do a beautiful job. In fact, I was in his shop once, And I was totally amazed because I didn't see any tools, no tools whatsoever. But he showed me his collections of planes, and some of his planes were about the size of my thumb. And it's absolutely amazing what he could do.
Yeah. Yeah, they call them Luthers, and they're amazing.
Some of the modern glues will mute the vibrations so you don't get the sound. That's why the horsehide glue is so important in making instruments. I know I had a problem when I was making a guitar, and I was told, no, you need to use a horsehide glue and not a PVA in there, because the PVA will mute the vibrations and you won't get true sound out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It dries too hard. That's the point, I think. I'm sorry, it doesn't dry hard enough.
It doesn't dry hard enough.
Very hard.
I am looking up right now when PVA glue was invented.
Okay, I thought someone,
PVA
I'm
glue.
gonna guess in the 40s. Remember my father talking about it.
1912.
1912?
1912.
I guess that was before the 40s.
Yeah. Invented by, it was discovered by a German Fritz Claddel in 1912.
Wow.
And he was looking for something that didn't give off dangerous fumes and was perfectly safe to handle with bare hands. I didn't know horsehide glue gave off smells, or I've never worked with it. Or maybe he was using something else. And
I guess it was a long time before it became generally in use.
yeah.
Before the Franklin Glue Company came along with type on it.
Interesting. Yeah, see? The telephone.
Is Elmer's a PVA glue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elmer's has been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're probably horsehide glue too, but like Franklin does, or like Type Bond does.
What was that mucilage glue we used to use in grade school? It was kind of a brownish.
I don't know what that was.
I don't remember that. I remember I remember in grade school a little bottle of Elmer's glue, but we also had paste, which tasted really good. All those kids were eating paste. Nowadays they put bad flavoring in it, so kids won't do that. And I remember how wonderful rubber cement smelled.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Lord.
But wow, so PVA's been around since 1912. That's amazing. So what else we got going on, attorney? Anybody working on any special projects?
Well, in Grand
I'm doing
Rapids,
flat work.
Go on.
I just to say I'm doing flat work.
You're doing flat work?
Yeah. Trimming out a window.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're seeing you now. I spotlighted you.
Yeah. My place up north, the guy that built the house didn't quite finish everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the last few years, I've done a number of different projects. And this year I'm working on this one's the bathroom window that never got done. It's like the only window in the house that he never put a windowsill on and any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on.
I have been working on getting pens up on my Etsy store. And I'm getting ready to start pushing that because I doubt very much if my December craft show is going to happen. And also I'm turning some pen and pencil sets that are platinum with Corian. Those are always a hot seller. Women really like the Corian pens because they feel like glass in their hands and their nails click on it, and that they like that. So I got this Corian called Antarctic, and it looks like compressed snow. It's really beautiful when it's turned and polished. And I got a couple other ones. I got one that looks like sandstone. Another one that looks like remember the old camping gear we used to have with the blue porcelain white dots on it?
Yes.
Well, I got a Corian that looks just like that. And it's really cool looking. And another one that's kind of like green sand. I don't know what to call it. And they make beautiful pens. And I'm finding there's a lot of Corian out there that you can't turn because the coloring's on the surface only.
It's not Corian.
It's not
So
Corian?
product.
Okay. So,
When I just redid my bathroom, well, Victor did it for me a couple years ago. And I was looking at Corians, and the lady at the store said, "Oh, you should try this product. It's really good. It's made here local, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay, I'll try that if you think it's good." I said, "Yeah, it's just like Corian, all that stuff." So when we got it, what we found out is it's a surface material, but the thing is, it's not all the way through. It's only on the surface.
yeah.
And so we were talking about cutting it and shaping it and forming it. You couldn't do any of that. You had to, use it as it was.
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of problems because our plans did not work out.
Yeah, I had a piece that looked just like butterscotch candy. It had that waviness to it and everything. And I mounted it up on the lathe and turned it. It was all white on the inside.
Yeah.
So much for the butterscotch candy. So.
Save money on the quality. Save money on the
Yeah.
save money.
Here in Grand Rapids, I went to a lumber mill and I picked up a slab of hard maple, a slab of red cedar, and some cutoffs of walnut, ash, and white oak. So I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking after the first year, I'm going to have to get over to the mill because I'm going to get back into doing some segmenting and playing around with that.
Yeah, that's my only problem here is he only sold 8-quarter stuff. I was looking for 12-quarter.
Uh-huh.
But I figured I could take this and process it and then do some segmenting with it.
Oh, okay. Cool. That measuring system confused me for years.
Really?
Yeah, and I finally had somebody about a month ago really explain it to me, and I just kind of went, it makes so much sense. And of course, if I'm in a mill or something like that, and somebody said, "Well, this is 8-quarter and this is 4-quarter and everything," I don't want to look stupid. So, okay, yeah. And it was actually Dennis at the place out in M59. Armstrong, yeah. I keep wanting to call Anderson. Yeah, Armstrong. Dennis out at Armstrong. Just a great guy. And he explained it to me. And he says, "Don't feel bad." He says, "We get this question all day long."
That's because you didn't pay attention in grade school math.
I never paid attention in math. It wasn't just grade school. It wasn't high school either. It wasn't until I got to college studying electrical engineering that I realized I probably should have paid attention to math.
It's really funny. When I was in school, trig was something I thought I'd never, ever, ever use.
Yeah.
What happened? I became a machinist. I needed it every day.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Well, in college, I was studying, electrical engineering, and trig came in big time into that. And I actually got pretty good with it in calculus and stuff like that. And then, I only worked for about a year as an engineer, then moved into the computer side of things and worked with phone systems. And that was my whole career. And so back in 2003, when NBD was bought, and I was sent over to another company, they got rid of me at the end of the contract. After 3 years, they said, "We're done with you guys. We didn't want you in the first place." That's pretty much the whole phone call. And so I was trying to figure out what to do. And so I have these skills at fixing things and stuff. So I started a handyman business. And I had a lady who hired me said, "You know what? I would have felt a lot more comfortable if you had a builder's license." I went, "Okay." So I went and got a builder's license. And the test, I don't know if any of you have ever taken it. That's the most miserable 4 hours of my life, taking that test. And the one thing that almost got me was we got to the question about the pitch of a roof and how you figure that out if you only have this length and this length. And I'm looking at that going, oh my God, that's algebra.
Trigonometry.
Oh yeah, trigonometry. And I'm looking at my watch. I'm already 3 hours into this test, and I'm oh boy. And they let you have a piece of paper and a pencil, and so I'm starting to play down. Come on, brain, work, and it suddenly hit me, and I got the question right. But boy, I did some sweating on that one. And I said, man, I should have paid attention.
Yeah, it's stuff that you learn in school that you think you'll never use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, now working with playing around with segmenting, I'm going, oh, I probably should have taken that geometry class. So
segmenting, I recently, I use that SegEasy sled system. I built one myself, and the wedges, I bought them online. They are perfect. They do. You get whatever segment you're looking at. If you're looking for a 16, 18, I'm trying to remember what I have. I think I go up to a 36 segment piece that I could build. And it's totally worth getting the wedges.
Well, I did do that. I built a Segi sled. And then one of the guys I follow on YouTube is Keith Barrow out in England, who hasn't posted anything in quite some time. And he was making and selling the wedges. And so I got the complete set from him. I had to pay euros for it, but it was still cheaper than, buying the set here. And that's what I've used. But I also created a cheat sheet. So, if it's 16 segments, this is the angle, and I just created that cheat sheet that I have up on my wall in the shop to speed it up a little bit. So, but yeah, when I first started out though, I watched these guys on YouTube's and they were showing the formulas they were doing and everything like that. And I'm sitting down trying to do it. And I'm going, man, this is killing me.
I used to, being a machinist, I had precision protractors and that. So I was setting my angles and I was pretty close, but pretty close is not exact.
Yeah.
And I would have to do half segments and then sand the one edge so that I could put them together.
Yeah, it's amazing what a difference of 1 degree makes.
Not even 1 degree.
Yeah.
Half a degree, a tenth of a degree over 18 pieces is 1.8 degrees.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be flush.
Yeah. And I had a problem where when I first started out, I didn't realize it, but my saw blade wasn't coming back to 90 if I moved it. And so I got that all figured out, because that really made a big difference. And then I cut a 12 segment ring and I put them together and I still had gaps on the outside. And it drove me nuts until I saw a thing on YouTube and I checked it, and my blade was about 1 degree off in the back to the
Miter guide?
The miter guide, the slot for the miter, just 1 degree. And because it's a contractor's, so it's an old 86 Craftsman, I had to get down underneath from the back and unloosen 3 of the 4 screws and take a wedge and whack it with a hammer very lightly just to get it to move. And it took me about 2 hours, and I finally got it just exactly where it's supposed to be at. And what a difference that made.
Oh, yeah.
But it's stuff you don't think about,
Right.
Yeah. So but that's the cool thing about it though, is it's been learning. It's been a learning experience. It keeps the old noggin charged up. And so that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed playing around with segmenting.
Well, with segmenting, one of the things I like to do is use different woods to create designs in the segment. And what I find very helpful is the Excel spreadsheet, because I can color certain cells and say, okay, this is the pattern I want.
Yeah.
And I can make it on Excel and then just follow that in my my build-up. It also works well for basket illusion.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen the Tom Lohman's work?
Probably, but
he's got a YouTube channel. He's the guy that you know, he makes these dizzy bowls that are truly dizzy. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he'll cut these segments and he'll get all these, you know, he'll show you the work he's done with all the formulas and everything, and none of it makes any sense. And then as he's putting the different types of woods together to create these patterns, it's still not making sense until he takes these rings and cuts them into thinner rings on the bandsaw.
Oh my God.
Then starts putting them together and the patterns come together. And so he's creating these patterns in his mind and doing page after page after page of formulas to figure out what he has to do to create what he's come up with in his mind. I'm going, my God, you know, and I hope he's selling his work. I hope he's getting what he what he deserves for his work. I sat in one of his classes at Turn on Chicago a few years back, and just the simple stuff he did there was mind-blowing. So if you get a chance, check him out. It's Tom Lohman, Lohman, I think it's spelled, on YouTube. And then the Papa, 1947, he does things where he makes these feature rings, and he's gluing all the different pieces of wood together so that when he cuts them off, he's got a star pattern or a diamond pattern or stuff like that that becomes part of that segment ring. It's amazing watching him. And what he does is almost kindergarten compared to what Tom Lohman does. And yet the Papa confuses me all the time. So,
I like to watch some of these things on YouTube on how they develop their feature rings. And one guy, and I don't remember his name, he just makes a bunch of feature rings and sets them aside, and then when he's ready, he'll use it in a project.
Yeah. I know who you mean. I can't think of his name either, but he's got them hanging all over his shop too.
Yeah.
And he'll walk around, he'll look up and he goes, that one will work. That one will work.
Yep.
And then when he's done, he's got a masterpiece. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
I would like to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a Seg Easy. I made a Seg Easy also, and boy, that makes such a difference.
It does.
I have one of those Incra jigs, Incra miter gauges, and the Seg Easy is.
You know,
Incra miter jig at all.
Mm-hmm.
Seg Easy is perfect.
the only thing I've got against the Incra jig is the not Incra, the Seg Easy, is when I built mine, I followed the plans exactly, and my two adjustable parts are too close together because sometimes I want a wider board in there. And I understand I can put them on the outside, but it's just easy to put one on the inside and push rather than have to hold it in position.
I have a clamp I use on mine. I have a clamp I use to hold them down.
That's what I need. I need to get a.
But it is wonderful. It's just.
Yeah, I forgot the name of those clamps.
Making the segments fit together was really prohibitive in time-wise.
Yeah.
With the Seg Easy, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your blade is straight.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world.
And everything, you know.
Yeah.
But some of those guys are incredible artists with the
Yeah.
segmenting, you know, they're just.
And some of these guys are cutting their segments on miter saws.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah. I even saw one guy doing it all freehand. He made up his own miter jig, and he was cutting everything freehand. It was just amazing. This is why I wish I would have started this about 30 years ago. Because I don't think I got enough time left to learn all the stuff that I want to learn.
Well, because you can learn something every day. That's, you know.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes even two things.
Yeah. Yeah, then you get a headache. So.
You know, I have some software I wrote. I started writing software in 1966, actually, that runs on Windows 10, written in C++, that you can give to, if you want to calculate like the length of rings, of segments for rings, of pieces to make a ring. If you give the outside diameter, the ring max, and the ring min, it will calculate the lengths for you. There's places online where you can do that and you can buy software. But I wrote some stuff quite a while ago, and it works fine. It works good, you know. So you can put in the ring max and the ring min and the number of segments, and it'll calculate the length you cut the segments to, you know. So if you want that, I could give it to them for they could have that. You put it in a what do you call it, a folder on your desktop, and just execute it, and it'd be in two pieces. You give it a one that you tell it what you want. You say, you describe each ring, and then the next you'd have another execution where it would read that file and it would create a file telling you a cut file. So that's I could give that to anybody that wanted that. So, but I wrote software for a very long time.
Wow.
Can that be posted on our website?
If somebody, I don't know how you can download software from the website or not. You know, it'd have to. I don't know whether it would run on anything but Windows 10, because I had it running on Windows 7, and then I went to Windows 10 and it stopped running. So, and I don't. So, but you know, somebody wanted to send me their, you know, what do you call it, a floppy, a thumb drive. I could do that, or I could even try emailing it to people.
How big is the file?
All it's really the programs. It's two programs. What they call it in the terminology of Microsoft, they call it EXECs, right? When you go to execute a program under Windows, you click on a file called EXE. And that's a suitable program. And they're really not very big, you know, they're not large or anything like that. We could try, maybe I could try to mail them to Jeff or something. You can play with them.
Yeah, definitely.
They do seem to work. They work for me. Never had any problem. But you know how software is. Yeah. But I could mail them to Jeff, and if you wanted to play with them, you could, and we could figure out a way to send them around if anybody wanted it. Now there is stuff on the internet you can use, and there's other, you know, commercial software. But if this would be fine if anybody wants it, it's available.
I would definitely like to see that and play around with it.
I'll try to mail you both files and some information about both EXECs that you would know how to put. Do you have Windows 10?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll
be able to create a self-extracting zip file that, you know, installs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't successfully mailed an exec file to anybody, or I'm just not.
Well, that's because there's a lot of security stuff put in Microsoft and Chrome now to keep you from being able to do that. But what you could do is, I send a lot of stuff. I use a online file sharing program called MediaFire. I signed up with them, and you know, it's free, and you get like a gigabyte's worth of space to store stuff on and share. And then when you want, you know, so when you put it up there, if you're sharing it with somebody, you generate a link that can be sent to them, they click on it, it takes them right to it, and they can download it.
Okay.
So that could be one way we could do it. But yeah, there's a lot of protection in place to keep from being able to share executable files, because that's how a lot of the viruses and stuff were getting spread.
I spent most of my life running IBM mainframes, which are seemingly so much easier to use than, like the fact that the program ran on Windows 7 and stopped on Windows 10. IBM would never do that to a customer.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah.
when Microsoft has the Microsoft is not that customer friendly. I don't.
No.
They have the whole world to themselves. So.
They do, and one of the big battles that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs had was, Steve Jobs believed that something had to go out perfect, and that's why it took it was 6 years late in getting the Macintosh out. Bill Gates says, no, you don't have to put it out there perfect. You put it out there operating and let the customers troubleshoot it for you. And that's how it's been with Windows ever since.
Yeah.
Windows has probably got about 5,000 hours of testing on it by its programmers. And other than that, they put it out and let the customers complain and fix it as the customers complain.
What the kind of money they have, they could have 20,000 people testing it to release.
Yeah.
They could have, how much money would they have? Huge amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
They could have some huge amount of testing. Like what happened to me with this Windows 7 to Windows 10 thing should not have happened.
Yeah.
I had to rebuild the program, which is not.
Yeah. And that's because they totally redesigned and rebuilt Windows.
Yeah.
So
all the programs that my program was, I don't know how much you know about writing programs and linking and all that jazz that you do, but it has to link into it programs from the operating system, and they must have changed those so much that my program that I wrote, the part that I wrote, was no longer compatible with it. So then it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So I had to go and I had to recreate the program on Windows 10, and then it would work. So, but Microsoft does what they want to do.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the only programming I ever did was back in the days of the Commodore 64. I learned BASIC. And
still use BASIC.
I've forgotten it all. But I was actually writing database programs for small business and churches and stuff using the Commodore 64. So I'd sell them a whole package along with a custom-made database that they could use. And but when the Commodore 64 disappeared, I just forgot all that because everything became so much easier.
Yeah, it's incredible now. It's amazing now.
Yeah.
One of the first companies I worked for ran the company off a Commodore 64, and I look back at that now and laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like running the company off of your phone today.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And it worked out well for like churches and stuff, and small businesses. And one of the things with the Commodore is because, you had to put in basic command for everything. There was no automated anything unless something was already written for it. And one of the things was there was a line of basic you had to put in just to clean the floppy drives, and there was just to get them to turn without trying to read anything, so you can have a cleaning disc in there. And I had 4 floppy drives on it. It was a royal pain. And so I created a menu system that all I had to do was click on number 1, and it just asked me which drive, and I click on that drive, and that was it. And so I ended up copywriting that program, and I was going to sell it. And then Commodore 64 announced that they were going out of business. And I'm like, damn. I had a name for the company and everything, And then one of the coolest things that I ever saw was with Commodore 64, a company came out with a program called CodeWriter. And it was basically for building databases, but you basically took the fields that you wanted and told it what these fields were, whether there's name field, address field, whatever, then it automatically wrote the code for you and made a separate operating program.
Okay.
And from what I understand, you can do that in Access. It's just not as easy as the old code writer was.
Right.
And so I just don't play around with that anymore. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought that was one of the best ideas anybody came out with for home computing. So.
Hey, Jeff, you were asking what people were doing recently, right? So I made a segmented mailbox. This is my mailbox in front of my house now.
Oh, cool.
It's backwards, obviously, but that's it's all oak that came from a tree that they cut down in my yard a number of years ago, and I had it milled, made it into planks.
Very nice.
I like
Very
it. Yes.
My wife said that Oakland County says you can't have a brick mailbox anymore for liability reasons. People running into them, I guess, and they're too strong. So I said, well, I'll make it out of wood instead.
Yeah. Well, my buddy growing up, his father was a rural postman, so he drove around on the wrong side of his car all day long. And back in the 70s, there was a lot of stupid kids that used to like to run down the back roads and knock over mailboxes. And there was an old guy that put his mailbox back up with a steel post through the center of it and killed 2 kids.
Yeah.
And that's when the law started getting written that you couldn't do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I first got married, we were living in Detroit, and I was living on a corner. We had a very wide easement, and I put a plant out there, a potentilla flowering bush, and somebody would run it over. They ran it over about 3 times. Well, the 4th time when I went out there to fix it, I put a 4-inch steel pipe in, and I let it hang above about 12 inches. Well, the guy that ran over it ripped out his oil pan. And he had the nerve to come over and say, "What did you do? You ruined my car." I says, "Yeah, you ruined my plants."
It was a nervy thing to do, wasn't it, on his part?
It's smart aleck kids, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's confusing out there sometimes.
Yes, it is.
My neighbor Jim, God love him, he just goes nuts from all this stuff. And I said, Jim, just don't think about it. When you're on the road, just don't think about it. You can call a guy a name who's driving like a jerk, but just don't let yourself go crazy for it, because all you're doing is making yourself sick. Just be the best you can be at what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Welcome, Paul.
Paul, you're muted.
Yes.
There he goes. How you doing, Paul?
Great, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for letting me in late.
One of the things that's very interesting now is, like, my wife and I have 4 local granddaughters, and the amount of time they spend on the pads is amazing.
Yeah.
Pry them off of it. It's like, stop, talk to us. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember not having television, but
Well, I remember my son when he's in preschool. I used to have him on. I had a computer for him because when he got to kindergarten, they required him, and this was way back when, but they required him to have basic keyboard skills.
Oh my God!
For kindergarten. Yeah.
Well, you are a kid too, aren't you?
What's that?
You're a kid also then.
I'm a very old kid. I'm Benjamin Button.
Two classes I wanted my kids to all take in school were keyboarding or typing and public speaking. And now keyboarding is, it before you even get to school, because the kids are on computers all the time.
Yeah. And they're saying that the
Yep.
keyboard is only going to be around for about another 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, we're just about done with the keyboard. Everything will be speak to the machine. They've gotten so much better with it.
Well, a lot of my text, that's what I do is I just talk into the phone.
Yeah,
And then my wife says, what are you doing? Who are you talking to?
yeah. Just got to get better with that autocorrect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Yeah, I
I'm-
sent some to a lady friend of mine just recently, and it did not come out the way I meant it to to come out. And she wrote back, and she texted back. She goes, "What did you just say?" And I looked at it and went, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I said."
I know
but-
I'm arriving in the middle of a conversation. I apologize for that, but there's, given what you're talking about, there's a very important program on TV that I recommend. If you have Netflix, it's called The Social Dilemma.
yes, I've heard a lot about it.
It's fascinating, and it's very enlightening about what's really happening with technology today.
Yeah, and
the pace.
it's
and the
got a
pace at
lot of
which it-
people dropping off of social media too. Yep.
Well, and it isn't just social media, it's by design. It's a brilliant design that artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
it's an incredible program. It's on Netflix, called The Social Dilemma.
Yeah. Yeah, I plan on watching that. And yeah, artificial intelligence scares me. I remember the first Terminator movie, and that's basically what that was about. And it sounds goofy, but yeah, and then, Google a couple years ago, they got 2 artificial intelligent machines that started talking to each other in their own language. And they shut them down. They had to shut them down. Yeah.
They invented their own language, yes.
Yeah. That's scary stuff. Scary
I've been
stuff.
a big science fiction fan forever, and that is a theme of a lot of science fiction. Where,
Oh, yeah.
The computers take over the world.
Yeah. Star Trek covered it a lot.
Yeah.
Way back in the 60s. And I have a dilemma in that, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I didn't want it. I didn't want it at all. But, January of last year, I decided, it could probably be a good tool for selling and pushing my business. And it has helped me a lot with that. But, I find a lot of stuff that I see out there that I won't respond to, including from very dear friends, that I just don't want to hear. They got a right to their opinion, whatever. I just don't want to respond to it. I don't want to get caught in a battle. Stuff my family posts, and the hate out there, the amount of hate out there. So I was thinking the other day, what could I do as an artist to advertise my wares for sales without having Facebook or Instagram? Because that's the 2 tools that I use. And I have, I've done some Google searches and stuff like that, and and this is where artificial intelligence comes in. They automatically lead me back to, well, here's how you sell on Instagram. That's not what I asked. And especially in a year where we've had no craft shows. This has been a bad year for me. So I'm going to post some video on Instagram and Facebook on a fairly regular basis, talking about what 2020 has done for the artisan and the craftsman and the small business. And we need to get out there and, promote the little guy, promote the artisans, and help them continue on what they do. And then I'll throw in a sales pitch for something I got for sale. So, but I don't know if there's anything out there. I haven't been able to find anything because it purposely leads me down a different path. Mike, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I was. What is that called? It's not cookies, or it's. I know if I look up something on Amazon, when I'm on Facebook, it'll pop up. Hey, you were looking for this, or did you ever?
Honey. It's called Honey.
No, not honey.
No?
There's something else that.
Well, when you go to a website, sometimes they leave those cookies on your computer.
Yeah, yeah,
Somehow somebody else can get them.
yeah, exactly. That's it.
I don't know quite how that works, but it's because sometimes they'll ask you, "Do you mind if we leave cookies or not?" And then if you go back to the website you were at, they get you further along more quickly. But it's complicated. I mean,
Yeah.
if you try to read about the security of the new technology world, like the TCP/IP world, which is what the new world is based upon,
Yeah.
it'll cross your eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's across a rabbi's eyes.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, the final few years of my career, I was always a voice engineer. I dealt with phone systems and stuff. And, you know, the voice and data people were like this all the time. You know, data looked down their noses at us because, you know, it's just dial tone. But I'll tell you what, when you lost your dial tone, all hell broke loose.
That's right.
You know, when your computer went down, yeah, they'll get to it. You know?
Either one, right?
But my final few years in the business, you know, voice and data became like this. You know, voice started going over data, voice over IP. And I tried learning some of that stuff. And you're right, it's mind-boggling.
Oh, yeah.
Just, you know, how they create an IP address. You know, and there, I went way back to the 70s when I started learning computers on my own. And, you know, IP addresses are created from binary math.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how fast binary math came back to me. But I still, you know, and I could create an IP address, but I couldn't create a subdress address because it just didn't make any sense to me. And then all the other stuff that went with it, I just said, you know, that's enough.
The amount of energy that goes into our country and business, you know, for the quote, I always refer to the new technology world because I spent so much time in the old technology world where I remember being able to transmit huge amounts of data over great distances and among huge companies with great security using the IBM technology. But the new technology is amazing. I mean,
yeah,
all the stealing of information and everything. You know, it's amazing. It's
yeah. And now we look at how technology has infiltrated the woodworking world. You know, with you know, computer-based CNC and laser engraving and all that stuff too. And
that's a good thing there. Yeah,
yeah, and I know there's a lot of arguing about CNC. I personally, you know, I don't care whether a person's really carving or using CNC to create something. If you're mass producing something to sell like April Wilkinson does, I can see CNC.
Yeah.
But I will always have 1,000 times more appreciation for the guy who sits down at his bench or in his chair and carves.
Yeah.
You know, always.
You don't think the guy that's programming is giving the same artistry? I mean,
well, yes and no. If he's creating the programming for the CNC to create that, then yes. But there's so much of it out there now that you just download and print.
Oh, that's true.
You know, for lack of a better term. Now, I met an old gentleman many years ago. He bought one of the early CNC Sharks from Rockler. And him and his wife had retired. They sold their house and they got a big diesel pusher camper. And they were just driving around the country, staying at campgrounds. And he would get into a campground and he would set everything up outside of his camper and have wooden signs up that he made with price tags on them. And all of a sudden, he'd have all these campers coming over wanting a sign made. And, you know, he ended up making like $100,000 a year, you know, just making signs for people. And my hat's off to him. That was brilliant.
I've seen that with the Epilogue wood burning system. They had one that was, you could put something in about the size of a sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And he would burn addresses and things like that. Yeah,
yep.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Or he'd burn boxes. Like I remember seeing it at a fly fishing show. that he would burn fly boxes
Hmm.
where you would put your flies in. He would burn your dog or your kid's picture or whatever into the top of
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you know, and he made a ton of money doing
Yeah.
it.
I met a guy down at the Wyandotte Art Show a few years ago, and his whole booth was stuff he made with his laser. And his number one seller was basically just 4x4 placards of all the different armed forces, their emblems, the Marines, Army, and stuff. And he said he could never keep those in stock. You know, at the end of the day, he was burning 20 more of each.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And you know, I really have no problems with technology coming in, but you know, I understand it. And if you're doing something where you're mass producing, that just makes life so much easier. But I just have this very deep, much deeper appreciation for the artisan sitting there, creating stuff by hand. And
You know, when you talk about say, you know, Facebook and your reluctance about it, you know, I think we're going to find, I'm going to talk about politics here for a second. I think we're going to find that the Russians are going to fool in our election via Facebook. They're going to take advantage of the fact that you can abuse these things, and people do stupid things on Facebook. You know, they really do, because they'll send out something and say, myself and our family were in downtown Detroit at dinner, and so everybody knows their house in Troy or Shelby Township, whatever, is empty, you know. So,
yeah,
but it's
Facebook does prove Darwin's theory, the Darwinian theory. Yep.
some people go crazy with it. I mean, they're sitting there all day sending stuff out on Facebook. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and some of it is just the vile stuff. And I've got people that I'm friends with. I've stopped following them. I just couldn't handle the vile stuff coming out of them anymore.
Yeah.
Whether I agreed with them or not. So, but no, one thing I do want to say is I don't want to give the impression that I don't think a guy using CNC is not an artist, because they are. There's a lot of work in getting what they want onto that machine and do it right, especially if they're doing it 3D. So you know, someday I wouldn't mind having a CNC myself to play with. But a part of that is just because there's the old computer bugging me from my whole life of being in IT.
The only reason I don't have a CNC or a laser, I just don't have the room for it.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I have a 10 by 20 shop that I can hardly walk through.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know, I was showing Stephanie pictures of it because she's building a 10 by 20 shop, and she wanted to know how my layout was. So I did a quick video for her and everything. And I says, now, this does not mean that your shop has to be like this. You know, I'm just trying to pack too much in here. So, you know, I've been working on that. But yeah, I don't have the room. And a laser especially, you got to have venting. And I am just not going to punch a 4-inch hole in the wall of my house. I've already got one for the dryer, and I've got a couple other ones for venting and stuff like that. I'm not punching any more in. You know, at some point it's got to hurt the home's value. You know, my neighbor Jim keeps saying, you got to get yourself a bigger compressor and put it out in the garage and plumb it in. And I goes, I don't want to drill holes into the base. You know, I just don't want to do it. So I went out and I bought a California compressor. Sits right next to my lathe. And you and I could be standing next to each other just talking in a normal voice like this while it's running. It's quiet.
Is that a screwdriver?
Beg your pardon?
Is it a screw drive or is it a piston?
It's not a piston. I think it kind of, for lack of a better term, I think it's a reverse vacuum pump. I think it probably uses vanes because it's just very, very quiet. I'll fire it up right now and see if you guys can hear it, even though I got a noise canceling mic. But can you hear that?
Yes, but it's very acceptable.
Yeah. Now, if you were standing here with me, we could just talk like this with no problem.
Yeah.
So,
my shop is in the garage. Well, part of the garage. My son put an addition on the garage to store a boat the boat's now in a landfill.
Mhm.
So I took over the addition. It's 16 by 24, and it's way too small. I have a vacuum and compressor in the garage on the other side of the partition, and it works that way.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, mine is a noisy compressor. When I was working, we had the piston type compressors, and then all of a sudden, the owner of the company said, this isn't acceptable. It was too noisy. And they went out and bought one that was a worm drive.
Okay.
And the worm drive is just what you think it would. It's like it's pumping sausage, you know, grinding meat and making sausage, but it's really just compressing air.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a sander, sounded like a palm sander.
Hmm.
It wasn't very noisy at all.
Wow.
It was on demand, and it supplied a whole shop worth of tools. No problem at all. Now that has to do with how much they spent on it,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, if I had an outdoor shop, because we're talking in a couple of years, we're going to downsize, and one of the things I'll be looking for is a house with an outbuilding that I can put a shop in. And if I get something like that, then definitely my compressor will be outside or built into a corner and enclosed, and definitely my dust collection will be outside and plumbed in, because that's probably my loudest thing here in the shop is the dust collector.
Well, yeah, after that compressor, yeah.
Yeah, the dust collector. It's a Harbor Freight. It's 2 horsepower, and it's loud. So I wouldn't mind getting that out. So, but my design for my shop changed when my wife started having input. So I want a pantry. Okay. So, but anything else on wood turning anybody wants to cover? Because we got about 10 minutes left. Did you guys like this idea?
I did.
Nice.
Something different for a change?
Kind of like a happy hour.
Yeah. Well, I really noticed when we have our social hour before our meetings, a lot of cool stuff was getting discussed amongst people. And since it's been so hard to get somebody to volunteer to do demos, I thought this might be a good alternative off and on from time to time. And I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. I've been trying to keep up with the spotlight, so we're seeing whoever's talking. That's just hard to do and try to run everything else too. Normally, when I'm doing the club meetings, I have Chuck and Matt handling all the co-hosting stuff in the background, so I look good. So, or as good as I can be. So, but yeah, I found this to be a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I thank you guys for the advice on the Christmas tree. Oh, somebody's posting, Rick Williams, can anybody explain why a shop vac or dust collector tends to lose suction as the bin or barrel fills up? Well, the first thing I look at is if you're looking at your standard dust collector, one stage where you got the bag on top and the bag on the bottom, what happens is it starts losing its suction because the bag on the top is filling up the pores in the bag. They're usually 5 microns, 3 to 5 microns, and they're filling up with dust. So there's no airflow. And, in vacuum, you have to have flow to have the vacuum. Vacuums that are designed around flow rather than suction do a better job. Now, I put a wind air filter on mine and replace the bag, which gives me a lot more time, but I still have to go in with my air compressor and blow that out about once a month. I blow it from the outside, so the air's blowing in, and all the dust falls down in the bag underneath, and then I go back to full suction again.
I will occasionally go out and shake my bag.
Yeah, that's another thing. If you've got a bag, that's the easiest thing to do. Shake
Yeah.
it, bang it, hit it hard. Yeah, when I had the bag, I would do that. And then after about a year of use, I would take the bag outdoors, empty it, shake it out, turn it inside out, and beat it against a tree. So
Well,
that
the kind of problem with that is the dust blocking the pores is what creates a filter also.
yeah, because these bags are generally 5 micron, and 5 micron is pretty big.
It is.
Yeah. My Win is rated for 1 micron. That's what I liked about it. Rick Williams is saying both of mine are 2-stage with cyclones. I seem to notice more suction after I empty. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing. Airflow starts slowing down, because you don't have true flow. Air's coming in, it's got to go somewhere. So whether you got a cyclone or not, you got to keep those filters clean. So I hope that answered the question.
Well, I think the other thing is the bag fills up on the bottom,
Mhm.
less of the stuff seems to be able to fall into it, because there is some air movement across the top of the
Yeah.
lower bag. And so the closer it gets to the top, the more of the dust that's going to collect up in the top filter.
Yeah. And somebody told me once that I think it's pronounced Thalen baffle, would eliminate that, but I don't think that's the case. I think the Thalen baffle will just make more stuff fall into the bottom bag and help collect more stuff.
No,
So-
actually, I built a theme baffle, and all the stuff flows into that. There's nothing in the bag anymore.
Really?
Yep. I get very, very little in the bag.
Interesting. I've not built one because I just been too doggone lazy, and my vacuum seems to be doing the trick. So, for me, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Because I fixed a lot of things that were not broken in my day, and that was a mistake.
But you're not an engineer if you don't fix things that aren't broken.
I know.
Yeah, that's my problem. I put a wind filter on it on top of that. So there's very little.
Yeah.
I get no dust in the shop at all.
Yeah, it's made a big difference because even with the dust collection and the dust filter, I still had a lot of dust in my shop. And, the infamous day that bowl came off the lathe and hit me in the head, my shop was full of dust, and my mask was covered with dust. And so I just took it off to blow it with a compressor real quick. And as I was getting ready to put it on, boom, the bowl came off and hit me. And that's when I started looking at making my dust collection better. I've not gotten it down to 0 dust. I don't know if that's even possible, but it's much better now. It takes me a long time to build up a layer of dust on the shelves and stuff than what it used to be. So
I plumbed my shop for vacuum during this lockdown, and
Yeah.
I noticed that I have a lot less dust in the shop. Maybe it's because the collection is at the unit, and I don't forget to put the hose on. It's already there. All I have to do is open the blast gate, and it does work a lot better.
Yeah.
I also built a separator, I guess you'd call it. I empty my bag now. I don't even empty it once a year now because everything goes into this separator, and I'll empty the separator 3-4 times a year. And I
Yeah.
don't vacuum everything up. That's just dust that comes off of my sander, or basically my sander or my planer. Stuff that comes off the lathe goes on the ground.
Yeah.
Unless I'm sanding, and then I have the vacuum on, and it captures most of that. But the chips and everything, I'm taking out maybe once every 10 days.
Yeah.
So,
And I wished I had room for a collector because I would do that. So And I've had people tell me that when you're turning at the lathe, you don't need to have the dust collection going because you're not collecting your chips and stuff anyways.
Exactly.
But the thing is, you're still creating dust.
Well,
So
that's true.
yeah.
But
So I run it all the time.
yeah,
In part because I have the problem with the lungs and everything like that. So I wear a respirator, and I just want it to collect as much as I can. Now the downside of that is if you're turning green and you got those beautiful shavings coming off, a lot of times that clogs up your dust collector.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I just stuck a bucket underneath the. My dust collector has 2 ports coming out of it, and so I just put a bucket underneath the one port, and I turn it off, pull the cap off, and just pull the stuff out, put the cap back on, and I'm back in business. But I haven't turned that much green wood lately. It's mostly been dry.
Yeah, most of the stuff I've turned in my turning career is dry.
Yeah.
It's just what wood I had access to.
Exactly, and I can't get to my wood as into my shop as much as I would like to. If I could get in here every single day, I'd be turning green wood a lot. But that's just part of it. And
I've learned that some woods, when they're dry, are ridiculously hard to turn.
oh yes,
Hickory, any pecan,
yep.
are all very hard to turn.
Honey locust.
Honey, yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember. Black locust is yellow, honey locust is red. Yeah, honey locust is very hard to turn.
I just turned a honey locust bowl for a lady, and I was exhausted after I hollowed that baby out.
Yeah, how many times you sharpen?
Probably 20 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think carbide would come in handy. I'm not a big fan of carbide, but I am beginning to be in certain situations.
Yeah, I've got carbide. I just don't use it all the time. If I do use it, I tend to use a square carbide to help me rough out a log into a shape for a bowl. Depending on the kind of wood I'm working with. The round carbide I like to use at a 45-degree angle for smoothing and shearing cuts, just to help smooth it out. I've not done a whole bowl with carbide. I keep saying I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that one of these days, just to see.
That, speaking of using certain tools, when Ian did his demo wands, was talking about using the skew. And I did that. I used the skew on the whole thing, and I was impressed with myself with the finish that I got on there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm trying to use the skew more, and I'm starting to feel comfortable with it. I've done a couple pens with it. My only thing with the pens is when things start to get really thin, then I start getting nervous, and I've chipped off some ends, and then I have to say some language and stuff and clean it all off and put a new piece of wood on the barrel. So, but one thing, I always turn my pens using my regular size roughing gouge, but I've started, and I just started this week as I'm turning Corian pens, I'm using my Sorby Mini. And this little bugger is nice, and it's aggressive though. You got to be really careful with it. And I think it's because of the size. You tend to want to move more, or you tend to want to treat it like you got a full-size gouge. And so I'm trying to keep it with just very, very light cuts in doing the shaping and stuff. But I like it. I really do like it. I got this along with the different little tools for doing Halloween, like Christmas ornaments and stuff like that, and a micro spiraling tool with it. And you think I can find that spiraling tool anywhere? I have torn my shop apart. Matt's doing all this spiraling stuff that I want to do. I've got the 2 spare wheels hanging on my pegboard, but I can't find the tool anywhere. And I know I didn't lend it to anybody because I just don't do that.
while I was a machinist, I had the availability of the different tools over there. And Woodcraft had a sale on the spare wheels. So I bought wheels and I made myself a holder for them. And I really like the mini. I haven't done anything with the large, but you can do a lot. And like I say, I saw Mark's platter, and that thing was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to try some of the techniques that I learned at that video.
Well, I'm getting to the point where I think the only way I'm going to find my texturing tool is if I buy a new one.
Yeah.
Then it'll show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
pretty
then
much.
you'll find it, and then you can bring it to a raffle.
There we go. Yeah, sounds good. So, well, listen, guys, it's 12 o'clock. I thought this was great, so we're going to definitely do it again. Just don't know when right offhand. So I'm hoping for next month to have a workshop. And it might even be me. I'm working on some ideas, but I just want to make sure I'm comfortable with doing it right, so I'm not presenting anything wrong. And then we'll take it from there.
I like Cindy's idea of doing the video first, and that way she can see, or the presenter can see what they're doing.
Yep.
And like you say, if you're doing something wrong, you can correct it.
Yeah. And so what we got to do is we got to experiment with that. Because I'm sure you saw it, it was kind of choppy and jerky.
In some places, yeah.
Yeah, and we think the problem was it was recorded in 4K, and that might have been requiring too much bandwidth.
Yeah.
So you know, we got to play around with maybe shooting at 720 or something like that. But yeah, I do like that idea too, and I think that will help with people who are just very nervous about being up in front of people, even though it's on Zoom. And then also you don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about the camera and stuff like that while you're doing turning.
Well, the other nice thing is you don't have to talk while you're working.
Right.
You can do all the demo stuff, and then you can talk over the video.
Right.
I think that's a lot easier for people to not have to stop and start all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe that would be a good topic for another talk. Zoom talk would be talking about how to make these videos and stuff.
Very good idea.
Get people like Matt and Chuck on who have a lot of experience, and now Cindy with what she did. And, that might be something.
I did a couple of YouTubes, and I found the best way to do those was to do to video everything ahead and then talk over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my son has been on me to set up a YouTube channel, and I'm not sure I have anything to offer that other people aren't offering anyways. And then the other side of the coin is I wear all this gear to protect my lungs and stuff. So yeah, I would have to do a voiceover.
Yeah, but you can, and it works out very well. I mean, even Carl Jacobson, a lot of his are voiceovers.
Yeah, yeah, and lately he hasn't even talked.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's been a very pleasant change too. So okay, well, everybody, thank you for coming to our first Turner's Talk today. I've loved it. I've enjoyed talking with everybody, and
thank you for having us.
Well, thanks for trying this.
As your president, I'm doing everything possible to keep this club as much normalized as possible, and it's not been easy. It's been a challenging year, but I'll tell you what, we've got a phenomenal member base that hasn't complained about anything, other than maybe somebody posting something political. Nobody's complained about anything. I've got a wonderful board that is very open to working with me on stuff, and I've been very open with working with them on ideas and stuff like that. And I've got great people with technological knowledge that has really made this thing work this year. So I am very happy. I am very happy. It's not the way I wanted to be president, but hey, what the heck? We do what we got to do. And there's supposed to be new features in Zoom to make it a lot more fun too. So I'm going to play around with some of those. So until I see you guys next, which would probably be the October meeting, stay safe, keep turning, and have a lot of fun. So
All right.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
take care, guys. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.